Welcome to VGK Today, presented by MGM Rewards, a daily podcast bringing you an inside look at the Vegas Golden Knights' 2023 Stanley Cup playoff run. I'm Justin Russo with the Golden Knights on Monday, May 15th, and last night the VGK officially cleared the halfway mark on their quest for the Stanley Cup by defeating the Edmonton Oilers 5-2 in Game 6 and eliminating Edmonton to move on to the Western Conference Final. It was a game very similar to Game 5 for the VGK, in which they found themselves down 2-1 in the second period, but a string of goals in the second period saw them leave with a 4-2 lead, and from then on out, they clamped down on the Edmonton Oilers, securing the win in the game and the series. And the story of the game has to be Jonathan Marchessault. A natural hat trick for Marchessault in just over 14 minutes of time in the second period to take the Golden Knights from a 1-goal deficit to a 2-goal lead, one that they would hold on to the rest of the way and use to eliminate Edmonton to move on to the Western Conference Final. It was a big game on a multitude of aspects for the VGK, lots of things to go over, and thankfully, joining us today on VGK Today, we have Dan Duva and Gary Lawless, who recapped all the action right after the final buzzer in Edmonton.
The Golden Knights defeat the Oilers 5-2, win the series in 6, 4-2. The Golden Knights advance to the Western Conference Final to take on the Dallas Stars or the Seattle Kraken for the fourth time. In 5 playoff runs, the Golden Knights advance to the third round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Gary Lawless, the Knights scored the game's first goal for the first time in the series, but almost as quickly surrendered that lead, trailed 2-1, just as they had after one in Game 5. But just like in Game 5, they got 3 goals in the second period, and then they shut down the Oilers in the third. Smith got the first one, natural hat trick for Marchessault in the second, and the new daddy, Will Karlsson, the empty net goal to finish it off. Bouchard high on the left side. Pass broken up. Vegas coming out. Karlsson has an open path to the cage. Karlsson scores! Empty net goal. 5-2 Knights. 38 seconds to go in Game 6. First goal of the series for the new dad, William Karlsson. Save that puck for Beckham.
The misfits are sending the Golden Knights to the Western Conference Final. Marchessault with 3, Karlsson with 1, Smith with 1, and a 5-2 lead for the Golden Knights.
5-2 the final in Game 6.
Well, let's touch on that right there. All the goal scorers they're the misfit line. Didn't play together, but they're 3 of the 6 original misfits still on the team. And Zach Whitecloud joined the team in year 1, so there are 7 players from that team. But Zach only played in 1 game that year, didn't play in the playoffs, played in the regular season. So, we look at Marchessault, Karlsson, and Smith. They represent. They continue to represent the year 1 team. Yeah. That's who they are.
It's 6 guys. It's those 3 plus Carrier, McNabb, and Theodore. It's those 6.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, and I'm not to slight Will, Shea, or Braden because they're just as important, but because they were called the misfit line for such a long. They're kind of the shield. They're the brand. They were fantastic, and Jonathan Marchessault, he just has a way of rising up when his team needs him.
1 penalty about to expire. It's now 4-on-4 again. Pietrangelo left. Marchessault shoots. He scores! It's a hat trick for Marchessault. The Knights have a 4-2 lead with 1:24 to go in the second period. It's the second playoff hat trick for Jonathan Marchessault. 3 goals in this period for Marchessault, and the Knights have their largest lead of the day.
In one of the most important moments in organization history, I'm talking about in the spring of 2018 in Winnipeg after the team lost Game 1 of the Western Conference Final. He made a statement that the team was going to be better and win the next game, and they won the next 4 in a row, and he scored 2 in that next game, and he scored 2 in the next game after. This morning in the dressing room, I said to him, "What's the feeling?" He said, "Well, we've got a chance to beat the best team in hockey tonight." And I said, "Aren't you the best team in hockey?" He said, "Not until we lift the cup." Very interesting mindset for Jonathan. And
last time I checked, the Oilers haven't lifted the cup in a long time. But
no,
well taken.
I think if you're the Golden Knights, do you not think they got tired of hearing that they were playing the best 2 players in the world?
Yeah. Yeah, I think back to asking Zach Whitecloud about early coverage of the Stanley Cup playoffs and how when on television, panelists, experts, many of them former players, were asked about their favorites in the Western Conference, nobody picked Vegas, and the Golden Knights were not even brought up as part of the conversation. And I asked Zach, what do you think of that? He said, perfect.
Yeah. So I want to touch on a few narratives. And some of these are old. Brian Burke went on a radio show right after the Golden Knights traded Nate Schmidt and said, the Golden Knights, they are turning people over too much. Guys aren't going to want to go there. Guys aren't going to want to stay there. It was really good radio. It wasn't true at all. But it got picked up, and it's been a narrative that you've heard from people for a long time. This team is together as any team you'll come across. They play for one another. They play hard. You're going to hear from Alec Martinez later. They block shots en masse. This series they won with depth. They gutted the Oilers by rolling 4 lines and 3 D pairs. The Oilers do have the 2 best players in the world, but they were, late in the series. Draisaitl got nothing accomplished. McDavid was awesome in Game 5 and had a goal in Game 6, but then was very quiet the rest of the way. The Golden Knights wore them out. They wore them down. They just kept throwing people out there that could go full tilt for 30 to 45 seconds and then get off the ice. And the Oilers were just, their top guys just were extending shifts more and more and more. Bruce Cassidy was masterful. He didn't make one mistake in this series. Made a smart decision to put Teddy Bluger in for these last 2 games to use Teddy's speed and his ability to check. He knew he was getting scoring from other places. It all came together. And the last thing I want to say, George McPhee and Kelly McCrimmon, the people wanted to run them out of town last year when the team had an historic onslaught of injuries. That's the only way they missed the playoffs last year. But everything happens for a reason, because they end up making a coaching change. They get Bruce Cassidy, this has been a really masterful coaching job by Cassidy all season. He's changed this team. He's added elements of scoring and checking that they haven't had. Kelly McCrimmon and George McPhee have now, since the expansion draft, they have won 9 playoff rounds. The only team that's won more is the Tampa Bay Lightning since 17-18. That's it. Tampa's won 2 Stanley Cups and lost another one, right? In that time. Chicago won 9 in a similar time frame when they were winning their 3 cups. This is really heady stuff. And McPhee and McCrimmon are right there with the very best hockey operation groups in the league. Von Karpen, Bobby Lowe's, Jim McKenzie, Vince Williams, Mick McCrimmon. They got really, really good people out there watching games, watching players. I didn't name all the amateur guys. They're tremendous. So I have to tip my hat to them. This is the 4th time, Dan, the 4th time that you and I will call Stanley Cup playoff games when there's only 4 teams left.
And it's the third round of the playoffs.
Yeah. The reason we say it that way is because of the 2 COVID seasons. It wasn't the Western Conference Final. It was something else.
Yeah, they just called it the third round in 21 when Vegas played Montreal.
Exactly. It was the Western Conference Final in the bubble.
Dallas.
Sure, yeah. So, I just think that they, and they never stop. They just, they added Barbashev and Bluger at the deadline. Really smart pickup of Hill in the summer. All 3 of those guys played tonight.
Yeah, and Jonathan Quick right there as the backup. Yeah. Don't forget about him. Yeah. And while he hasn't played, he has now backed up Adin Hill. What reassurance and comfort for the organization, for the coaches, and then to have Hill, who, in the same division as Jonathan Quick, his career, first Arizona, then San Jose. And, there's the future Hall of Famer, 2-time Cup champion, Conn Smythe winner. Jonathan's been a great teammate. Everybody has raved about his presence, starting with Alec Martinez right on down. And that all comes together, to get the experience, the group, the chemistry. Phil Kessel hasn't played in this series. But again, you've got two guys who are likely to be in the Hall of Fame. Not seeing ice speaks to the depth of the team. And the Knights not going over the top with big splashy moves, but finding the right moves to augment this particular group of players. I said it on the radio. It's a wonderful mix. Veteran players, younger players, guys who've been part of the organization, guys who are recently added. There's a really neat balance to this group. And that extends to the coaching staff. You've got some new members of the coaching staff, some who've been around, some who've been around a long time, some who are younger in the coaching ranks. It's a really neat mix of people, and they seem to click. And, of course, the more you win, the more it seems to click.
Good stuff, Dan. Excellent.
Dallas, Seattle, up next. There are going to be storylines, whether it's the Kraken, newest franchises in the sport, or former Golden Knights head coach. Dallas did pretty well against the Knights this year for Pete DeBoer. Knights did pretty well against the Kraken. It's Game 7. That'll be fun to watch.
We'll watch that, and then we'll start talking about the next series after that.
Golden Knights defeat the Oilers 5-2 in Game 6, win the series against Edmonton 4-2. It's the first time the Oilers have lost consecutive games in regulation in just about 3 months. Golden Knights win it. On to the Western Conference Final. 15 seconds left. Knights up by 3. Oilers send it in, a bouncing puck near Adin Hill. Whitecloud is there to kill the clock. Final 10 seconds. Bounce it around side of the net. Over to the far boards with 5 seconds. Karlsson is there to kill the clock. The game is over. The series is over. Knights advance to the Western Conference Final. Dispatch the Oilers in 6 games. Final score, Vegas 5, Edmonton 2.
Just a wonderful game for the VGK in terms of coming back against the Edmonton Oilers, not losing their cool when they gave up those 2 early goals after Reilly Smith himself scored early on, and the VGK just stayed calm. They relied on some of their star players, and who else but Jonathan Marchessault, one of the original Golden Knights, a golden misfit, comes through, gets 3 goals, a natural hat trick in the second period, and helps the Golden Knights to a victory to send them off to the Western Conference Final, who again, we don't know who it'll be against. It's either the Dallas Stars or the Seattle Kraken. That Game 7 will be tonight in Dallas, so the winner of that game will end up traveling to Las Vegas to take on the Golden Knights in Game 1 of the Western Conference Final sometime this week. Again, schedule's not confirmed just yet. But some good thoughts there by Dan and Gary, giving you a little bit of context as well, going back to that 2018 run, especially the comments made by Jonathan Marchessault, and you're starting to see some of the parallels between that initial Golden Knights team and this one this season. It's feeling like a special group in the 2023 Stanley Cup playoffs for the Vegas Golden Knights. But before Dan and Gary gave you their thoughts on Game 6, they had a special guest stop by the broadcast booth after Game 6 to give them some instant reaction. So without further ado, here's Dan and Gary right after the game with Alec Martinez.
Alec Martinez, we understand, is downstairs. Do we have Alec?
Yeah, unfortunately so for you guys. Pulled the short straw.
We are glad to have you, Alec. Congratulations. Well, where to begin here? This was the first time that the Oilers have lost consecutive games in regulation since February. You guys beat them in 6 games. I guess we'll start with this. How did you do it?
I think just sticking to our game plan. I thought that, early in the series, obviously getting in some penalty trouble. I thought that as the series went on, we got better and better on the PK, and we got better and better at staying out of the box. I think even last game at home, they got a few gratuitous bounces, and I think, I know it sounds odd that you gave up 3 PK goals, but I thought that it was probably our best showing, before tonight. So, I think that it's hard to stay patient within your game. Sometimes just within a game or a period or a whole series. But I'm proud of the way the guys did that. We truly believe that we were a better team 5-on-5, and I think that we showed that.
Alec, I asked you a while ago about blocking shots, and you said scoring goals was more fun than blocking shots. You can tell me that for free. That was your exact quote. And then I asked
that's
you.
still very true.
And then I asked you, why do you do it? And you said, because I want to win, and that's what you have to do to win. And 5 blocks last night. I haven't seen the number tonight, but I bet you it's right around there again. You're still doing the things that it takes to win games.
Well, I mean, I try to play the game the right way. I think that some of the things that I do don't necessarily show up on the score sheet, but it's not just me. I mean, you see, there was a lot of huge blocks. I mean, a few come to mind. Petro had a ton. Nabbers had a bunch throughout the series. Carly had a big one. There's a lot tonight. Teddy Bluger had a real big one in the first period. So, I don't think that I'm alone in wanting the puck to hit them, and I think that like I said before, it's an essential part of the game now. If you want to be successful and you want to win, and I think that the guys believe that in here, and it's one thing to believe it, and it's another thing to step in front of one of those things. So I'm really proud of those guys.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to suggest it was just you. I think you lead, but I think a lot of guys follow. You blocked 5 tonight, by the way. Aiden Hill comes on in the middle of this series, and I think he went to a real high level tonight, late in the second, and then in the third as well. What are your thoughts on your goalie?
I mean, absolutely. I think that's not easy. Him coming off that injury, hadn't played in a while. And then step into a playoff series as emotional and revved up as this one was, and he answered the bell. He made some incredible saves when he went in. All the games that he played, and I mean, he had some huge ones here in the third period tonight. I mean, it's he's a professional. He's been staying ready. He works hard. He does all the things off the ice to be successful on the ice, and really happy for him and his success, and it's going to be a big part of our team success going forward.
Dan talked a lot about Game 5 being a team win. I talked about it being an organizational win because you had Hill, Bluger, and Hutton all playing important pieces. Tonight again, John Stevens goes with all 6D. Haig's out there late, White Cloud late, yourself, and then the 4 forward lines, they rolled as well. Is it more fun to win when every guy on the bench has a big hand in what gets accomplished?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of what I mentioned earlier. It's a testament to our depth. You got to give credit to Huddy too, stepping in last game. Playing really well for us. Taking a stick to the face too, and that's never fun. I mean, yeah, it's also in order to win, you kind of gotta. Well, I guess it's scored by committee, but everyone's got to be involved. You got to be able to roll 4 lines. Everyone's got to contribute. It's if you have only a couple good lines, that's gonna expose itself over the course of a 7-game series. And really proud of the guys. I think the guys are really into it. We certainly have a great group that I think Rich said it the other day, that we genuinely love coming to work and being around each other, and you see that in the laughs and off the ice and the jokes that we have, the camaraderie, and then that certainly translates on the ice, and everyone being involved, everyone contributing, and that saves a lot of energy, that allows us to play at a high pace when we're rolling 4, rolling 6, and it's awesome to be a part of.
Last thing, Alec, and by the way, 2 assists in as many games. Got to throw that in there too.
Even a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
You've now done this 114 times. Today, your 114th career Stanley Cup playoff games. I'm sure you've learned a lot through the years. What have you learned about this group and your younger players who haven't been through nearly as many games as you have? What do you hope that they have learned now through 2 rounds of this year's postseason?
I think that we can learn from, well, first of all, the younger guys that haven't gone through it. They've done a hell of a job. You need that. You need young guys to infuse some energy into the team. play some big minutes, contribute. But I'd say with this series specifically, I think, it was very back and forth until just these past 2 games. And, I think that, the first 4, kind of alternated and who was outplayed, the other team. And I think it's important that, even if you do have a bad game, it's a 7-game series. You got to stick with it. And I kind of mentioned it earlier where you got to stay patient within your game and trust your game plan. And I think the guys did that. I think, there was definitely, times, especially game 4, the way that game ended, things, get a little rowdy at the end there, but guys stayed composed. They stayed patient in the game plan. They stayed confident. And, there's a reason you play 7, and you can't get too high, too low. I think I said that before the playoffs. And just after each game, you got to reset. And that's the same, we just won a series. We can enjoy it now, but, after, this is not, by any means, what we wanted to accomplish. We're not there yet. So enjoy it now, but then you got to reset and refocus, and, it's back to work whenever we start again a few days from now.
Alec, thank you. Congratulations.
Thanks, guys.
That's now a couple times on VGK Today. Alec feels like he's not a great interview and that we don't want to talk to him. Alec, of course we want to talk to you. 2-time Stanley Cup champion, one of the leaders on the Vegas Golden Knights. Got to hear what you have to say after a big Game 6 like that. So big thanks to Alec for stopping by the broadcast booth and giving some insight on the VGK's Game 6 win and the series overall against the Edmonton Oilers. And for the Vegas Golden Knights, again, their minds are now solely focused on the Western Conference Final, and though they don't know who they will play just yet, either the Dallas Stars or the Seattle Kraken, they do know that they'll get 2 games at home to start the series as the top seed in the Western Conference. So VGK faithful, gonna need you out at the Fortress, going to need you to be cheering extremely loud for the Vegas Golden Knights as they look to make their first Stanley Cup final since 2018. And good news for you on that front, because a limited number of single-game tickets to the Western Conference Final will go on sale today at 1 o'clock Pacific time. Again, 1 o'clock Pacific time. Tickets going on sale for the first 2 games of the Western Conference Final. We don't have the dates just yet. They will be announced after the Dallas and Seattle game tonight, but 2 games this week at T-Mobile Arena. Be sure to go to VegasGoldenKnights.com to get your tickets to the Western Conference Final, with the Vegas Golden Knights looking to make their second appearance in the Stanley Cup Final. And I'll take a moment to remind you to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss a moment of the team's quest for the Stanley Cup right here on VGK Today. That'll do it for us in terms of the recap of the second round and Game 6, a big win for the Vegas Golden Knights, and we'll see if they can carry that momentum into the next round and hopefully even further as they continue their quest for the Stanley Cup. Justin Russo signing off for episode 29 of VGK Today, presented by MGM Rewards.